Hello, everyone. I am finally sitting down to film my review of Lady Gaga's seventh studio album, Mayhem. I know I'm a little late with this review. I do apologize. 7 albums, although there's been a couple projects that you could add to that number. Harlequin just came out 6 months ago, 5 months ago, as a sort of side project, as she labeled LG 6.5, an accompaniment to the Joker 2 soundtrack and movie, which we all know how that went down. I've made a video where I talk about Harlequin and I talk about Joker 2. I still have not seen the movie. I don't have any intention to. And I also talk about the lead single, Disease, that came in October. So I will link that video in the description, as well as reviews of all of Lady Gaga's other albums. I've reviewed all of her albums except her first, The Fame. I don't know why I just never got around to reviewing that one. But they will all be linked in the description. So Harlequin was, as Lady Gaga described, 6.5. It wasn't fully LG7. And a lot of us, myself included, kind of thought that whatever LG7 was going to be tied to Joker. In August, the first real song that Lady Gaga put out in 2024 was this random collaboration with Bruno Mars called Die With a Smile. At the time, I thought it was going to be for the Joker 2 soundtrack. Then we thought, okay, it's not for that. Maybe it's for Bruno Mars's upcoming album / EP or whatever he's working on. When that turned out to not be the case, then it looked like around the time Joker 2 actually came out, it looked like Die With a Smile was just a droplet standalone collaboration that Lady Gaga and Bruno just made for funsies. However, Die With a Smile last September started to skyrocket on the charts and dominated the latter half of the end of 2024 into 2025, becoming a huge breakout hit for Lady Gaga and for Bruno. And I believe the reason why it was ultimately included on Mayhem was due to the surprise popularity of the track. Originally, when the album was, initially getting teased and about to be launched, when Disease came out, I don't think Die With a Smile was intended to be on the record. So it's interesting to see how the lead single of this album, and this is the first time it's ever been like this for a Lady Gaga rollout, was not advertised as the actual lead single. And so we all thought Disease was the lead. When all of us, were ranking our favorite LG leads, we were all wrong. It wasn't Disease, it was Die With a Smile. I must admit, this rollout's been kind of messy. I mean, it started to clean itself up after Joker 2, but the stuff that went down over the fall and around Joker, it was just, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad she put out Harlequin. I think she needed to give a little bit of a distraction. The album is nothing like what Mayhem is, and we all expected it to be the case. We got snippets of Mayhem at the Olympics last year, and that was where fans started to get a real sense for what the style and sound was going to be. We were all kind of expecting a slightly more edgy, industrial kind of post-pop kind of record. A little bit like art pop in some ways. The way that this album was starting to come together, it had a lot of us very excited. And of course, when Disease came out, all of us were like, oh my gosh, dark, edgy dance Gaga is back. This is somewhat of a return to form, as I spoke about in my review for the song. But then we had the Grammys, and we got the official second single, but it's really the third single off of Mayhem, Abracadabra, which I have also reviewed and will link in the description. Abracadabra was the song that 100% reinstilled my faith in Popga once more. Lady Gaga has been Lady for quite some time. One could argue since 2014, since the original Tony Bennett album with Cheek to Cheek. Lady Gaga has decided to be much more Lady than Gaga. Joanne had a few moments. It had John Wayne. Chromatica was a pop record, but it wasn't, unless you count the visuals, it wasn't a weird pop record. It was an actually very straightforward sounding pop record. It was very traditional house dance pop music. A little simplistic, I think, for what she can, in terms of the producers. Blood Pop. Blood Pop. Was he the best choice? Was he the best choice? I think a lot of us probably don't think so. But Mayhem has given us a real return to form, one that we haven't really seen an album of this kind of audacious pop spectacle from her, Stephanie, since 2013's Art Pop. When we saw the album cover, and there's multiple covers, and I will say the one that is used across the board for streaming and the standard is not my favorite of all of the images. I think that there are stronger images that could have been used for the cover. I will say I do think Mayhem may, at least if we're counting the standard edition, have my least favorite album cover of all of hers, including Harlequin, because I think Harlequin's an interesting shot in its own right. Joanne is very simple, but I also think Joanne really encapsulates the feel and sound of the record with its cover, which is straightforward against a blank background with a cowboy hat, pink cowboy hat. I think it fits it, even if it's boring. We all know Chromatica is one of the best things about it is that album cover. And of course, all of her other album covers have been such serves. This Mayhem album cover for me feels a little beneath her. I know she can make incredible editorial photo shoots work. And I'm just a little dismayed that this album cover wasn't popping just as much as I would have liked. But like I said, there are the alternative covers. The alternative covers are giving very much Marilyn Manson energy. And that was kind of what we thought we were going to get when we were about to take a real look behind the curtain at what LG7 was to be. And we were all wrong. LG7 does not sound at all like the goth industrial punk record that and also like the dark house dance record that I think a lot of us were expecting it to be. There are moments of that. There are little, echoes and glimpses. And of course, there is Abracadabra and Disease, the two lead singles. But outside of those songs, this is much more a straightforward 80s pop record. Perhaps a more elevated version of that. This is a David Bowie record. This is a Prince record. This is a Michael Jackson record with a little bit of, like I said, Marilyn Manson thrown in. And when I say that this album did not meet expectations, I don't necessarily mean that I was entirely disappointed. It's just an adjustment. We all had to sort of, okay, this is not what we expected. A couple of the songs are, but for the most part, this is a lot more of a kind of different kind of sound than was advertised, or that perhaps even matches some of the album art, or even the title of Mayhem. But we're going to roll with this. We're going to roll with the vision. And so I don't want to be negative in this video unless I need to be. And I will say that, yes, was there a little bit of initial disappointment that we didn't have more songs like Abracadabra and Disease? Yes, there was that initial disappointment. But what we did end up getting, for the most part, is a treasure trove of really hard-hitting 80s, 90s pop tunes. Pop rock, because there is rock sentimentality. We weren't sure how much of that rockier punk edge that Lady Gaga talks about being inspired by from her inspirations from her time, when she was just scrappy in New York trying to make it, playing at these dive bars and getting inspired by the musicians and the people and the nightlife there. I definitely feel the return of perhaps almost a pre-The Fame Lady Gaga sound, or even sound that is somewhat found on The Fame. A lot of people have pointed out that there are actually some interesting parallels sonically to songs on The Fame. I think she's always had a few songs on her records that always sounded Fame-esque, but this album maybe is the closest we've gotten since The Fame Monster to being closer in that conversation. This has a real, this has some DNA of that record in there. But of course, it also has DNA of all of her records. I definitely see the Born This Way influences with some of the electric guitars, some of the more hard-hitting, edgy kind of pop numbers. I also see a little bit of art pop thrown in there with tracks like Garden of Eden, which feel like they would have 100% fit on that record. A little bit more of a standard pop anthem. As of right now, this is her highest acclaimed album on Metacritic. And the Pitchfork score is pretty good too. I believe they gave it an 8. I I do think that's very interesting. I would not say that this is the top. For all who know my channel, my favorite Lady Gaga album is always going to be Born This Way. And unfortunately, that is where I think this album is going to falter for me, because it's when you have Born This Way to compare it to, it sets up expectations that just can be a little hard to ignore, especially when you have an almost similar kind of album cover and a little bit of a similar kind of aesthetic that you're playing with. I'm going to go through the 14 songs on this record in order from my least to most favorite. So unfortunately, we start a little bit with the negative. My one least favorite song on this record, on the standard edition, I'll talk about the 2 deluxe songs at the end, is going to be The Beast. The Beast is the slowest song. Turn on the music, turn off the lights. I want to feel the beast inside. I know you're hungry, ready to bite. I want to watch you turn tonight. I want to feel the beast inside. This reminds me a lot lyrically of the Monster song, of the song Monsters. And Monster, and there's another song that has the famed Monster in its lyrical spirit, comparing a boy to a Lovecraftian creature. There's a real edge to the heavy bass of this song, but it's too slow. It just does not, the almost metronome sounding beat. It's a sparser produced track until it hits. And it's by no means like, a skip. It's just a song that is probably the most forgettable out of the whole ensemble. And I think I'm seeing a lot of people agree with that take. There are people I've seen who are supporting of this song, who are fans of this song. And I am sorry if it's your favorite or you don't agree with me saying it's my least favorite of the record, but there's got to be someone at the bottom. So there you go. But perhaps even more controversially, or maybe not so, my second least favorite song on this record is going to go to Blade of Grass, which stings a bit because I do think Blade of Grass is such a meaningful song for Stephanie. This is a song about Michael Polanski, her fiance, who is responsible partially for, or largely, for her coming back to pop music in such a way. He's credited as a writer on like half of the songs on this project. Wrap that blade of grass around my finger like a cast, because even though the church burned down, I'll be your queen without a crown. This is the lawn of memories I mourn. I fall into your eyes, shelter from the storm. Gaga's never been so in love, and he comes across so achingly on this track that, I feel sacrilegious to not be in awe of what a, transcendent sort of feeling is expressed. But I just think that we've seen this sort of folk pop, ballad, time and time again from Gaga in the later stages of her career. There's elements of Hold My Hand and in songs off of Joanne that I just don't think Blade of Grass, even on Harlequin, I hear some of those, jazzier kind of piano inflections in the melody, possibly carrying over. And so I respect the song as a sonic listening experience. It's this latter half of the record that kind of drags it down. Next, we have How Bad Do You Want Me? I'd say this is the only other song on the record that I would really sort of kind of say, I wish it had been replaced with something else. A lot of people are pointing out the Taylor Swift sonic influence. And I do feel the 1989, the Lover sound very prevalent on the production style, on her backing vocals, on her vocals. This is a bubblegum 80s pop song. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but perhaps it's a little juvenile for the, gravitas of Gaga's music. I don't know. I just don't think it's what any of us really expected. I mean, it's so, I don't want to say it's throwaway, but it's so light in that pop kind of aesthetic, in that type of pop sound, that I just don't think a lot of us really expected. And it does have a Yazoo reference for the song Only You, which kind of forms the skeleton of the melody. It's fine, but you can't really say it's more than that. I mean, am I completely off base by saying that these three songs are a little bit disappointing? I don't know. But as we move through the rest of the album, I feel like it starts to really pick up. My next favorite song, my next least favorite, but we're getting better. We're getting better, is Vanish Into You. Probably my first hottest take. I understand that this is a song that will grab a lot of people, and it has all of the ingredients that makes it this power ballad that just has the funky groove, the incredible vocals. I feel like the melody is so reminiscent of Bad Romance that it becomes a little derivative sonically, and it just doesn't stand on its own 2 feet the way I feel like the other songs can in their compositions. I just feel Vanish Into You vanishes a little bit into the sonic ambience of the track list. I feel like a lot of the songs start to sound, I don't want to say they sound entirely the same. It's interesting how a lot of people, and Lady Gaga herself, has talked about this album being a cornucopia of influences and of sounds. This is definitely not one of her more cohesive records by any means, even though Watt, Circuit, and Gaga herself are producers on all of these tracks. Gesaffelstein is on 3 of them as well. There's so many different avenues that this album takes with production styles, but I do feel like the more interesting production is on songs that I've yet to talk about. Die With a Smile is perfectly fine. I have it at 5th from the bottom. It's a very safe but showy ballad, power ballad, that I think it shows a softer side of Gaga's vocal. Because even on some of the ballads, I feel like unless she's doing sort of more of a spoken word interlude, she is really, growling and belting with her vocal. And on Die With a Smile, it's a lot more wistful, which is a nice little change of pace. But I can also see how it feels like it is from a completely different project. It's just so much more chilled out, even though it's not the only song of that tempo. The production style is so much more different. It's very much in a kind of Bruno's kind of. It's much more of a big band kind of sounding song with less bass and grit in the production. And I think that closing with that song was an interesting choice. Maybe it wouldn't have been mine, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it being at the very end of this project. In some ways, I've seen a lot of people talk about it kind of being like Lady Gaga going through the mayhem, coming out the other side, ready, fully in love with Michael. And that's the journey that this record takes you on. So pretty much every song I'm about to talk about is a bop. Okay? The rest of the songs I'm going to talk about are all pretty good, if not great. Don't Call Tonight took a little while for this one to stand out for me, but it has its 80s groove intact, but it's just a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fitting in its oral kind of ambiance of a pop song for Lady Gaga than How Bad Do You Want Me, which is a little sparser. The synth ambiance is just a little bit more of that noir pop sound, that very Michael Jackson 80s pop sound that will be coming through in a lot more tracks to talk about. And I feel the same way about Love Drug. I mean, in some ways, Love Drug, Don't Call Tonight, these songs are kind of cut from a similar cloth. Love Drug just has even more propulsion behind it. Perhaps a little bit more of a stronger standout melody. Perfect Celebrity is perhaps lyrically one of the more interesting songs. It talks about the insecurity she has about being famous and how she's struggled with her alter ego of Lady Gaga, which has become this mythical thing, and her, Stephanie, reconciling those two forces, people's expectations of her, what it means to be a celebrity. She actually has, as she revealed in the Zane Lowe interview, that she was originally going to call this album Perfect Celebrity. I'm glad she stuck with Mayhem. But this is definitely a song that when I listened to it was like, oh, I can hear the Nine Inch Nails, the rockier side to the inspiration that was missing from a lot of the songs I just talked about. So this is where that like grittier kind of rock sound comes through that is still embellished with that pop sensibility. The way she sings Perfect Celebrity is at odds with sort of the rockier growl of the pre-chorus and the verse and the chorus, but that poppy element just kind of ties it all together as a song that has that tongue in cheek to it, that lightness, that femininity after over a gritty, really extreme guitar, and grittier pop beats. I mean, she's really straining her vocal on this one. This is one where she really is trying to just show off, how much she can belt and sort of wail. I've become a notorious being. Find my clone. She's asleep on the ceiling. Now can't get me down. You love to hate me. I'm the perfect celebrity. So rip my face off in this photograph. You make me money. I'll make you laugh. Show me you're pretty. I'll show you mine. You love to hate me. In I'm the perfect celebrity. This is, something that she is not only alluding to herself, but to so many female pop icons, particularly in the 90s. She talks about Princess Diana, even in the song, Watch the Princess Die. For those who remember, back in 2012, Lady Gaga teased a song called Princess Die that was supposed to be on Art Pop that never came to be, which was a tribute to Diana. Killa is the Prince tribute. Killa is the funkiest, the wackiest, the most left field song on the record, and something that I think does stand out in Lady Gaga's discography. It reminds me of the B-side from, what was it called? Retrophysical. Boy, that's a song I haven't heard in a long time, but someone brought that up, and I do hear the comparison. I'm not familiar with Gesaffelstein's work, but I don't know why when I hear a very German-sounding name and I hear allusions to the album being industrial, I'm expecting a very heavy, edgy, dark electronic industrial sound to the production that Gesaffelstein might bring. But instead on this track, what we get is really funky electric guitar. And it just lets itself loose. I mean, this song is very, and it's best embodied by that SNL performance. That SNL performance helped, sort of reanimate the song for me and make me realize just what a masterpiece it truly is. The way she is just, lost in the, the kind of manic delirium of the song, of the beat. It's so perfectly encapsulated in that performance. And it's one that, maybe on the first listen of the record, I thought, oh, this isn't my kind of style. This isn't my sound. And then it suddenly rose, after the second listen to the top 5 songs on the record for me. Disease ends up falling in somewhat the middle for me. I know that a lot of people live and die by this track. I think for me it was a great, appetite teaser for the return of a more pop-leaning Lady Gaga sound. But it also is a little bit of a misnomer because the rest of the album does not have quite the same edge and kind of gothic flavor that Disease has. But in the end, I can see how it fits into the sort of oral package that we have here. Garden of Eden is one of the most unabashed pop songs on the record. And I will bring up Art Pop because it reminds me with the production style that, Zed brought to Art Pop, Madeon brought to Art Pop. I could have easily believed that this song was produced by them. It was actually Gesaffelstein being incorporated one of the other songs that he worked on. Blade of Grass was the other one, which again, not have expected him to work on. But I think Circuit is also, carrying a lot of that. I mean, I think Circuit definitely gives Circuit and Want Deliver on these pop tracks. I mean, that was something that was evident from the lead singles. The pure pop perfection of Shadow of a Man is undeniable. The syncopation, the beat, it all is very Michael. And it's such a celebratory sounding dance track, even though it's about a subject that has bitter undertones. Constantly feeling as a woman in the industry looked down upon because of her sex and reconciling with that and how she's had to fight that every step of the way to be heard, to be noticed, to be given the flowers. Zombie Boy. Disco Heaven fans, Disco Heaven stands, rise up. Zombie Boy is the most fame sounding song on the record. It is the most disco song on the record. There is another song, a bonus track called Kill for Love, which thankfully also carries this disco spirit that is imbued into Zombie Boy. And so this is where I shout out one of the bonus tracks. Kill for Love, I don't love just as much as Zombie Boy, but I would say Kill for Love would be just under it. Kill for Love is an incredible bonus track. I highly recommend you listen to it. I think it's on the Target Deluxe Edition, the physical. And so both of these songs are something, again, a sound from Gaga I wasn't sure we were ever going to get again. It's not the kind of edgy, gritty industrial pop sound that I think we all assumed with a track like Zombie Boy and this album cover would give. I could see her putting on that wig again with a disco ball and just, I mean, the character is back. That kind of plastic pop doll, disco doll, is back and in full force. This is one of the most up-tempo songs. It is just absolutely undeniable. I think all Little Monsters agree that this is a highlight on the record. And perhaps one we would love to have heard more of. Thank goodness for Kill for Love as well. But at the top, there could only be one flagship song, and that is always Abracadabra. This song is one of the best pop songs Lady Gaga has ever created. I feel perhaps the most experimental. The vocal, the rhythm change-ups, the syncopation of it. It feels grand. It is explosive. It has Gaga rhyming her name with this kind of witchy spell. And it's very reminiscent of how she used to do that with her early pop hits. It's so geared towards expressive choreography that, no other song is better suited to dance to. And so Abracadabra will always be that bitch. And I will say, I lament that we don't have more songs that follow in Abracadabra's, drink the same milkshake. I think that one of the things that, what I was looking for, maybe a song that kind of evoked Bloody Mary, evoked Scheiße, some of the songs off of Born This Way that had also a, similar visual aesthetic, a little bit of a grittier, grungier tone with rock hints in there. I do feel like this album is sort of in conversation with Born This Way in many ways, but Born This Way ultimately has just much more experimental production. Born This Way, although there are songs that feel like they are chasing they are, trying to fit into an era of pop music of the past, it feels like such a futuristic record. This album doesn't feel as futuristic. Abracadabra, perhaps Garden of Eden, even though Garden of Eden also feels throwback. A lot of people are talking about, 2000s pop sounds on Garden of Eden, and I can see that as well. The rest of this album is just, it's a little dated in its sound. Now, she spices up that dated sound and she runs like heck with it, but it's just not quite pushing the envelope like I would have liked it to. And I do think it was a little misadvertised, but I don't want to, hold that against her too much. I think that, I understand why it's called Mayhem. For her, that was more to do with the lyrical content than it was so much to do with the sonic content. Although I will confess, I come to Lady Gaga more for sonic influence than I do for the sonic elements than I do the lyrical, especially if it's not a ballad. And I do find a lot of these pop songs to be, lyrically very kind of tepid, particularly in the middle section. We've got those sort of like with Love Drug and Don't Call Tonight, How Bad Do You Want Me? I understand why it's critically getting a lot of flowers. I think it's an improvement over Chromatica. I think Chromatica for all that it did have some subject matter in the lyricism that was extremely dark. It's a dark lyrical album disguised as very light and bubbly. I feel Chromatica felt half-baked, particularly in the sonic department. This album feels like there was serious effort put into to make these songs jump off the page. And I do feel the pop glory coming through, the vocals, the ability to really showcase them. I feel like Chromatica had songs that weren't going to as easily showcase her vocals. And this album's full of it. I mean, she's going to really, the performances of these songs are going to be so energetic and so demanding vocally. I'm really interested to see how she can pull them off. And so, can we just talk about that Abracadabra SNL performance? I mean, that was probably the best, performance I've ever seen on SNL, and one of the best pop performances I've seen on live television. I mean, it was just absolutely, it reminded me so much of when Lady Gaga in her early career would do all of these incredible performances and, just jaw-dropping, choreography and exquisitely rehearsed timing and costuming and stage work, the set of the stage. It was so small, but yet she used it so effectively. It was just an incredible performance, truly captivating. My parents, who are not normally big fans of this kind of electropop stuff that's very modern, were still spellbound. And on top of that, she delivered incredible vocals. I mean, despite all of the movement and all of the choreography, I was just like, oh, this is incredible. Very few pop artists today can do that. Very few. Let's just mention Can't Stop the High. Can't Stop the High is definitely not one of my favorites. It's another bonus track. I believe this one you can only get if you order through the Lady Gaga web store. So the two bonus tracks you can get in different places. I think it's sonically similar to Perfect Celebrity. Heavier guitar, almost a country sounding vocal. There's almost a hard country sound to it. So in the middle. It's not bad. I mean, again, The Beast is the only song that it's hard to not want to kind of like not include it on the record and maybe just put Kill for Love in there instead. I mean, that would be my perfect track list. What are your favorite songs on the record? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on this record? I would say that for me, this album is up there with art pop. This album is up there with, it's better than Chromatica, possibly better than Joanne. But it is still not quite to the heights of The Fame Monster, or Born This Way. I mean, even The Fame, I feel like maybe I'm giving Red One a little too much credit, but Red One knew how to make bops. So if she ever gets with him again, that would be incredible, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's her strongest album since art pop, though. I think that's safe to say. Joanne is not bad, but I think that this one usurps Joanne for me, in terms of overall quality. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. I'll see you all in my next video. Peace, love, and light. Bye.